Welcome to a special series of our conversations on African philanthropy with me, Bhekinkosi Moyo, the Director of the Center on African Philanthropy and Social Investment. We are shooting this special episode at the margins of the East Africa Philanthropy Network conference in Zanzibar. For the next couple of episodes, you will be hearing from participants sharing on systems change and other forms of philanthropy. Enjoy the series.
CAPSI Podcast Series, Conversations on African Philanthropy.
Welcome to yet another episode on Conversations on African Philanthropy with me, Bhekinkosi Moyo. I'm happy today to be joined by my sister, a mentor to me, and you'll understand why I say she is a mentor to me. Stigmata Tenga, the Executive Director of the African Philanthropy Network. Stigmata, welcome.
Thank you very much, Becky. I'm so honored and happy to be here and find the space to have this conversation with you.
I said a mentor and a sister to me because you and I have known each other for the longest period of time. And you have served different functions in my life and in my journey. At one point, you were the board member for an institution that I was the CEO of. But even before then, you had already worked with me on this journey on philanthropy. And so I really feel privileged to be talking to you today.
Me, same here.
Yeah. So we are meeting here in the margins of the East Africa Philanthropy Forum, one of the building blocks to the African Philanthropy Network. Actually, I said the forum, but it's the network. I would want us to start potentially discussing what your reflections are so far on the conversations that have been taking place since day one. We are on the last day of the conference. We've just had, some very good, I would say, challenge from Brian Kagoro, but there have been other debates around. So do you have any reflections so far on what is coming out for you and what those mean for APN?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this is a very interesting moment because when we started such conversation, you would mainly see our members only, or EAPN would only meet their members only into the conversation. And which was also very good because they would discuss on what they're doing, what works, what does not work, and already draw lessons for what they could do on the throughout the year, because East Africa Philanthropy Network does their meetings every year. What I'm seeing in this meeting is a diverse kind of group of people participating. So we have people from different sectors, but also people from different levels of operations within the philanthropy, but even people from the global north who came to listen in. And for me, that shows the growth and the diversity in the sector, and now the interest to see that the sector is serving as a strategy to development. Because having all of us here, from the practitioners, from the academia, we have seen private sector also is here. It's really, I think, the goal that we would wish to see for a long time, and I think this is making us very happy. Yeah. And the conversations are very much towards what is happening in the context. There is somewhat discussions about what is it that we are celebrating, but I'm happy to see that there's some provocative thinking around what should we be doing to achieve what we want. Yeah. And I think what we want is to see to it that the philanthropy is serving humanities, philanthropy is addressing inequalities, and we are having now, in the final analysis, just societies. Yeah. So I'm seeing that conversation going to that direction, which is good. Yet I think we still need to be more bold in ensuring that we are expressing the issues that are really pain in communities. But also I think we need to be too bold to see and place philanthropy where it deserves. We also sometimes try to fit in as philanthropy support actors, to fit in and deliver on goods that would be delivered by the government, for example. But we cannot fit the government. We cannot fill the gap left by the government. But I see us becoming very strong enablers. The focus on domestic kind of philanthropy, it's very, very good because it's coming up very much now. So the Africa philanthropy we wanted to see in discussion, we wanted to see in practice, it's really been recognized.
And then, of course, leading to this event, you held a strategy session with your members. What are the key things that you were focusing on? And I'm saying this because you are at the moment where you are rethinking, re-strategizing, and repositioning APN.
Yeah, thank you very much. So for us, we had spent 2 years studying what is happening in the context. And in the context, meaning what is happening and is being done by us within the continent, and also what is the interest of partners who are supporting philanthropy development in the continent. And the major focus for the thinking we have been having, and in fact, I'm still drawing a lot of lessons from this meeting, is I could put it in two main questions. One is, how can we evolve African philanthropy to amplify the voice and participation of our own people? And the second one is, how can we then make African philanthropy's interest and resources drive development? So there are many lessons that we have drawn from this strategic thinking. And I think what we want to come up with mainly is to see how we are able to build a movement and work together and bring everyone along with us. And every voice should count, every people should count, every interest should count as a way of improving the systems that are hindering development from the bottom up. But on the other side, what is coming up from our strategic thinking is that for us to deal with systems and to see that we are changing systems and structures that are perpetuating inequalities, we need to approach that system change from top down by addressing the global partners and addressing international NGOs on how development is done, because development has been done to us. We have never been drivers of development, but also making sure that we as Africans are driving that development and encouraging our partners to come to enable what it's already happening and what we are already wanting to do. So it is really a focus on systems change and structural change, but from both sides. We cannot only focus on top down, but we also need to focus on bottom up, because we need to have very strong institutions that would lead the development.
So what would be the key? I mean, I know you haven't finalized the strategy, but already you have a sense and an idea of what the key focus of the strategy will be for the next coming years. So are there like indications of what some of the pillars would be, or some of the key considerations will be?
Yeah, I think we have, and the members have really helped us at the Secretariat to sharpen that. And one is typically on the movement building, because as a network, we need members to reckon on. We need African institutions to reckon on. So movement building comes as one, because also we work so much in silos, copying from how development is done. So that is one side. One pillar, very strong pillar. The second very strong pillar is on influencing the practice and engaging with different practitioners in the sector to make sure that we are shaping and reshaping the narrative of African philanthropy. Because most of it, oftentimes when we need really data and evidence, it's lacking. So, and this is something which will be very much aligned to what you are doing here. having the repository of information about what Africans are doing, what works, what does not work, will help us to really see how we are able to do the programming better. But again, it will help the rest of the world, which is until now questioning if there is philanthropy in Africa, to understand that philanthropy has been a very important tool in bringing about development and in also bringing about social cohesion in our communities. And every community, society, and culture in Africa has a way of doing philanthropy. We may not call it philanthropy, but it is there. So those are the two main pillars. But the last one, we are looking for a cross-cutting pillar. And immediately after before we start this meeting, we had a pre-conference where we had launched our social justice charter. And that social justice is so important for us because we feel as if the work of not only philanthropy in the continent, but even that work of civil society is regressing. Because we see in deepening inequalities instead of, addressing the issues we have. We see the gaps between those who have and don't have widen. We see laws which are not working for us. We see fragmentation continues. So the other part for us is to see that we are able to transform the power that we have, because we all have power. Wherever you are, we have a power. Transform the power that we have to help us transform the way development is done. And have that bold vision. So that will be like a cross-cutting where all the aspects of gender, social inclusion, having a class and sexual orientation lens will come into. But the last one now is also building our institution, because we need to strengthen APN as a secretariat to become a really home for African philanthropy support actors, to become a go-to platform for conversations which may not necessarily be easy conversation, but for hard conversation, because we think we need to provide space for safe spaces for such conversation. So that will be the direction of what we'll be doing. But the major and the foremost, we are really going to try to the level best to retain the mandate of the network, which is mainly to coordinate and emphasizing more on collaborations and partnership with all existing Pan-African organizations, regional level organizations. And this time, Becky, we are going to work with our members at the country level as well. Because we see that is where we can bring dialogue with even government. That is where we can bring dialogue closely to the private sector. And that's where laws are being passed all the time. So working at the continental level or regional level does not help so much. So there will be areas where we have strong regional networks, because these are our anchors. Like here in East Africa, West Africa, they're also putting up West African platform. We'll try to a level base to see how we can revive the platform in Southern Africa and see how we can nurture networks in Central Africa, and ensure that, but where we see issues that need to be resolved at country level and we have members there, will be there at their support to private platform. We might not be that active in North Africa as yet. That one I want to admit, because of so many issues, and you all understand. But we want to enter very much into the Anglophone and Lusophone. We have members from there, but we haven't done a lot of work in those areas.
I was talking to your colleague yesterday. I think she's doing the thinking and the writing of the strategy. And we discussed something that is closer to what you were saying, which is that APN as a continental body might want to consider, in a way. So if we think of the ecosystem at regional level, you already have a stronger EAPN, but you don't have a stronger West Africa, you don't have a stronger Southern Africa or North Africa. So in this region, you are sorted, because the EAPN does most of what the regional issues might be. But in other regions, you are not. So one of the key strategic issues could be making sure that you build and strengthen those regional networks so that they become building blocks to APN. When that is done, it might be useful to now think of APN operating at a continental level, making direct relationships with policies that are done by the African Union, the African Development Bank, and other, continental bodies. Of course, those continental bodies also benefit from a bottom-up approach, where it starts at a country level, regional level, and then finally there.
Yeah.
I don't think APN is there yet, but my sense is that, in your strategic thinking, those are some of the things that you would be thinking about in a couple of years, to position APN as a premier continental and Pan-African body, but strengthened by what is happening at a country level, regional level, etc.
Yeah, I truly appreciate that, because that is what is happening really, and that is our intention. Building from the communities through the national level to the regional, to the region. So East Africa, it's okay, and I'm very happy that our member Trust Africa is taking up West Africa. We have started conversation with Southern Africa Trust to see how we can now revive the Southern Africa one, because it was very strong, but we need to see how. We have started conversation with some organizations to see how we can do West Africa, but Central Africa. But I think Central Africa, we said we will start with Cameroon as a country and build from there, because these networks need to be nurtured by organizations who exist in country, not us. So we'll start with Cameroon, and we have a staff in Cameroon who is already helping us to do that. On the other side, with the policy, yes, I understand we really need to work at the policy level and interact more with the regional development agencies, the REX, and also the African Union. But for that, we have started a movement which, even on African Day, we partnered with you guys and others to see how we can ensure that voices of youth are part and parcel of the implementation, acceleration of the Africa Free Trade Agreement. And that is a deliberate move for us. So we really, for the youth program, we want to strengthen that youth voice and participation in these processes. And we will see to it that all those concerns by young people and their interests are really catered for through the acceleration of AFTA from the country organs which are responsible through the regional development bodies and to the African Union. So it is very intentional.
So for some people that might be hearing us speak about APN, and they are wondering, what is this? What is APN? And I want us to go there, because when I was speaking yesterday, I realized that not so many people, even in this conference, have a clear understanding of what APN is, where it has come from, why it was necessary in the first place. And some even are asking, so what is the difference between APN and APF? Right? So maybe we can use this moment as a way of recapturing and documenting the history of APN, and really making sure that that history is out there for those that might not know about it. So let's start with the really, like from the beginning.
The beginning. So I think what you are saying is very right. First of all, to confirm that, because even the group of members who came, in civil society organization, the leadership changes. So those who represented our member organization did not know the history. We wanted to do the trajectory of APN, but very few would remember what happened in 2009 when we started. And you would see people coming with a lot of questions than answers. So that documentation is very important. We'll use this space, yes, but I don't think it will be adequate. We really need to document
and
that and write about it. And that is our intention, to write about it. So the Africa Philanthropy Network, in fact, it did not start as Africa Philanthropy Network. It started as an Africa Grant Makers Network, as you correctly said yesterday. And it was launched in 2009, but that is not when conversation started. The practitioners within the Africa grant-making field started to have that conversation for quite a long time, to see how they can find a space and platform where they would share their knowledge, exchange their challenges, but also see how they can now start to build the case for African philanthropy and ensure that the story of the continent is told by us in the continent and not by someone else, which is not truly representing us. But also see how they can support more organizing and how they can collect, they can have more power to negotiate. Because these grant-making organizations were also at infancy stage. And depending on funding from the global north. And the power to negotiate for more and better resources were not there for them. So that was the essence. That was the importance for this platform, and that's why they wanted to have this platform. And generously, 3 organizations, Trust Africa, you were with Trust Africa then, because even it's you who wrote the concept note for the launch of the AGN. So Trust Africa, Africa Women Development Fund, Trust Africa then, you yourself and Akwasi were there. AWDF BC was there, and KCDF, Kenya Community Development Foundation, Janet. You put your resources together, your minds together, and then you invited the other almost 9 organizations to come to a conversation and agree on the launch and who should be doing what from the launch. So you invited other 9 more grant-making organizations. And when those were invited, I was lucky to be one of the founder of the Foundation for Civil Society, which was the first and only grant-making mechanism in Tanzania. So I attended on behalf of the organization. And that is when the conversation started, and the need was really accepted. Everyone saw it was very relevant. And the movement started to see that more African grant makers are becoming part and parcel of the Africa of the network. And there were some very strong deliberations then, which everyone continued to do. And one of the deliberations, which was around the narrative, has resulted to the report, which is today referred to the most even in our website, Sizing the Field. And many other researches around illicit financial flows, around participatory grant making and so forth. So that was the starting. But for most of you who would benefit from this history, because from 2019, the implementation was going on, and these Africa grant makers were working with most of the civil society organizations in the continent. They continue to realize that civil society organizations and them were far apart. So the need to rebrand and bring more voices and make a platform a more multi-stakeholder came about. And in 2015, Africa Grant Makers Network was rebranded to become Africa Philanthropy Network. And in that meeting as well, I remember that is when the majority of women-led organization attended, over and above the Pan-African philanthropy and grant makers themselves. But that is when the Youth Forum was also launched. Africa Youth Network was launched. And they now need to deal with critical mass to amplify the voice and the work that is done in the continent came about. And I was part of the board then. In fact, I was appointed to be the board. And Becky were my chair of the board. And I was the deputy. I
was elected in that meeting in Arusha.
And the meeting was to take place in Accra, but it came to Arusha. But one thing which I should talk about here, which I think I can talk about later. Let me finish this history. It's about the assemblies. So the work continued to see how we can bring the multi-stakeholders into space. And by that then, and even when AGN was established, the need to have regional networks as pillars continue to be recognized. And there were strong regional networks, but again, as you know, how networks operate, it depends on the interest of members and the relevancy. Some of them continues, like this one, it's becoming very strong and vibrant. In other parts, they went a little bit as not strong. We have already discussed about that. So I had then to step out of the board in 2018. I remember it was May 2018, when my colleagues at the board felt strongly that we need to find a way of now bringing this, the conceptualization of multi-stakeholders into play
Yeah.
to reposition the platform, which was not taking place. And so I joined the board, the Africa Grant, the leadership as a consultant. I remember at the beginning, and then later on I took
a substantive
role to it.
Yeah.
And since then, now 2015, the APN is a multi-stakeholder network, but also APN is perceiving philanthropy as it's as a people's philanthropy, as an apathy, as a way of doing things, and as a key strategy to development. Because before, the network would take the grant making as a strategy, but now people and philanthropy, it is the strategy. So we focus very much on individual philanthropy and the African practices, but also on institutional philanthropy, because we were also taught by our studies in the field that there is a growing institutional philanthropy in the continent, and we see the growth. But the philanthropy which is ours, and since day immemorial, it is in all our societies, the horizontal one. So we are focusing on both, but the institution one is the one that seemed to be until now supporting the growth and the nurturing of the horizontal one in a way. But come COVID, we learned different lessons. We learned different lessons that what we thought need to be nurtured, it was now helping, and it was now telling us what it is capable of. So that is what Africa Philanthropy. We have a mission to reclaim the power that is in different practices and manifestations of African philanthropy. And we believe there is a lot of power because every Africa give, and there is a lot of power in giving. And so we need to realize that, so that Africans would not be, they don't need to be trained on how to give, but they need to be supported and organized to give more impactful, because we just give, You
were about to talk about assemblies. And, and I think assemblies have played a huge role in the history of APN. I mean, the first assembly was obviously in, I think, 2010 in Kenya, hosted by the KCDF. The next one was in Johannesburg in 2012, etc., etc. Are there any areas that you want to highlight in terms of the assemblies, maybe one by one or collectively, the ones that stand out and you want to, highlight some of the key issues that you were dealing with at the time?
So I think for me, I might not want to go into details, but what I want to say, assemblies for Africa Philanthropy Network, they take place once in every 2 years. And the first one that took place in Nairobi, Kenya, it had made a commitment to profile African philanthropy. And it made a commitment that African institutions will be working together to profile African philanthropy. And that for me was key, very key. And it continued to work that way. The one in Johannesburg in 2012 and the following one continued to shape the way that African institutions would work together, and continue to shape the way that African institutions should regain their legitimacy by working more closely with community, because that is where the philanthropy we're nurturing is. And also profoundly focusing on telling the story of what exists in the continent. So that was the role of the other two. The 2012 and 2014 come 15, because it was to be 14 in Accra, then it came to Arusha for 15. But then we had another one in Mauritius in 2018. That is when I joined fully as an executive director. That one for me was setting and helping us to have a roadmap of where should we start. Because the 2015 rebranded APN, but into APN, but there were no prominent platforms of members in between to say what is it that they want to do, and what does it mean to have a multi-stakeholder network rather than a grant makers network. So that for us was a really a a very, very important turn point to start now bringing new voices, recruiting new members from different spaces and diverse philanthropy practices. So that was the essence. But we also wanted to do one in 2020. And in fact, we were co-hosting, Wings in Nairobi. That did not take place. But we did another assembly in Kampala. So the intention of the Kampala one now was really for us at the Secretariat, and I think I need to reveal, as to me as an executive director, I wanted to use what members want and what are the needs of the continent to craft a vision for where should APN go. So we had two main discussions there, three. One was focusing on where is the money and how can we use African philanthropy, African assets and non-financial and financial assets to respond to the complex challenges we are having and address inequalities and injustices. And the another focus was, where is the infrastructure that should hold all this? If at all we want this network to be a scaffolding, for example, where is the infrastructure? Who should be doing it? Who is where doing what? And there is this language that came about now, ecosystem, which I'm not using it that much though, because I'm trying to unpack it. But then where are the different ecosystems and how to nurture them? So that was the second one, which was very big. And we were collecting now the voices of members and their partners on these lines. But the last one for us, we had introduced Youth Summit, which took place 2021, but it was online. But this time we had a full day summit organized by youth, run by youth, moderated by youth, documented by youth. For youth to tell us what is it that they see themselves bringing into the space and what kind of relationship would benefit them from the space so that they can become very active and have very meaningful engagement in building philanthropy, African philanthropy as a strategy to national development. So those were the three focus areas of the last assembly. And the truth is, my brother, they gave us information that we could use to work it for almost a decade. And the strategy we are talking about now is structured along those lines.
And this year you are partnering with Wings.
Yes, we are partnering with Wings now in October, from 3rd to 5th October in Nairobi again. We're co-hosting Wings Forum here in the continent, again to continue. And that's part of the assembly, but it is Wing Forum. Is part, and I think because we are mentioning this, I would like those who are listening here, my fellow colleagues in the continent and in the diaspora, to be alert, because we are circulating the call for registration and call for session proposals now already. And if there is anything, they can contact us if they want to be part of it.
So maybe as we prepare to end, what would be the key challenges that you would say the sector and APN has faced, and how would you want to be supported, especially by the members, but also by the development partners, including some of the institutions that are part of this infrastructure ecosystem?
Thank you so very much. There, I think for me, at the center of the giant challenge is resourcing the secretariat so that it can support movement building and it can support the influencing. The resourcing is a bit a challenge, and it is, and it has been a challenge. You remember when you are still serving on the board, to an extent that I think one should think twice whether they should be part of the secretariat or not, because then you need to volunteer all your time, and you have to be a strong professional to be here. And we volunteered, and this now is paying off. So that a major challenge is that. And why is that? It is a challenge because two things. Unfortunately, our members are very happy to become part of the platform, but they are still driven by the way development is done. Working in silos, very fragmented, chasing resources, upholding upward accountability, to an extent that to have all of us sit together and have a common voice and say, for this year, if there is one thing that we want to do, it should be all of us ensuring that in every country there are 10 girls who could not otherwise go to secondary school are going to secondary school. That would make a bigger impact, because there you have a critical mass and you have a common voice.
Yeah.
So that is one side. And because you don't have that and you don't have as many networks, it is difficult. It is something that we need to nurture.
Yeah.
So the network should be strong enough to say, okay, fine, we have these resources, let's come together and talk.
Yeah.
Because the infrastructure also is an issue here. It's not like in the village where we would say, let's go under that baobab tree and sit.
Yeah.
That costs us very little.
Yeah.
We would love to do that. But these kind of gatherings, they cost. So that is one. But we really need resources to have more conversation like this one. You don't build a movement if you don't have people of common interest who will have a common agenda. So that is one side. The other side is the fact that, my brother, believe me, until now, much as we have done quite a lot and there is a lot of impact by our grant makers and philanthropy support organization in the continent, Global North funders do not know how to work with networks. They do not know, because they sometimes want a network to become an institution that they could trust with so many systems, other layers and systems which have been there for so long. So imagine when a platform like this, sometimes when we started, we could not even do an audit for ourselves, it's the donor is telling you, give me a 3 years audit, because most of it was funded by members. So a member is giving you funding to sit there, and they are paying from their pockets. How would you have audited accounts? So that is another thing.
The model was actually that members pay directly for services. So if you are to ask for an audit, you have to get audit financials from all the members.
From all the members. From all the members. So
highlighting
and we try that because we were pushed to look for resources. But when you go, you find an activity that was supported by member. So if you build that as the case, it won't work. And another thing is the fact that, our members, as any other civil society, they have funding which is very much for very little for operation, but for the programs. So for them to say they will give you a lot of funding for you to do the operational work or the administrative work, it's not very easy for them because of the way they are also supported from the structure. So much as we would have a big number of members, but the membership fee is not coming up. So that, again, the amount of membership fee would show as, it would help us to use as, to seek for a matching grant or for a top up. But sometimes the donor is telling you, but how much are you receiving from your members? But, how much do they have? They need this as a platform where they could address their issues, not another milking goat. So sometimes, you even think twice to go to your members, especially after COVID. It's like, how can I ask for membership fee when I know people cannot fundraise? So I think that has been a challenge. But another thing for me, I think the challenge which I'm seeing is, again, the existing prohibitions, existing regulation, the existing levels of compliance for our members in their external fundraising and domestic resource mobilization, because most of them have opted to do domestic, but the restrictions are so. We did a legal assessment study through the 10 countries, and what is coming up is the fact that even registration of members, it's a big issue. In fact, that came as number one problem. The second one is the taxation. So there are taxes which allows, but they're not. We don't know about them. Or someone, maybe a commissioner for tax, will just hijack them and say, no, all donation and grants are to be taxed. But the tax law says these are donations. And for you to get that, you need to be a charitable organization. To obtain charitable status, it's another process altogether. Tax benefit it's another process. So taxation is another big stumbling block we have found. The third one, which is also very important, is what I've said. Our own capacity, because of the way development aid is done, to reimagining alternative
Yeah.
resourcing
Yeah.
to our work. We look for the calls from different donors instead of looking for resources around us. So even to work with the private sector, it's something that we need to learn and nurture that. Two last, which are very cross-cutting, is the level of compliances. By compliances to laws, which is very expensive for most of our members to afford. But the last one is government oversight. And we see it in almost every country. Now, almost all Commonwealth countries, the government have instituted a structure called NGO Registration Board. And this is a 100% government board, which might not even know how NGOs are operating. So it's another stumbling block.
So I know we have to let you go to our next session. I think what we'll do is we'll try and catch up with you again after your strategy has been adopted, so that we can then take a look into the future, but also maybe talk more about yourself in terms of, the other roles that you've played, especially your leadership at the Foundation for Civil Society, your role in different boards, but also helping other institutions succeed properly, especially from a succession planning point of view, because you are probably one of the very few organizations at the Foundation for Civil Society that has managed one of the smoothest successions and transitions. And so I would want to come back and have a conversation with you. But for today, I would want to thank you so much, Stigmata, for taking the time and just painting the landscape in terms of the origins of APN, because I think it's important for us to do that. So our next segment will now delve deeper into the activities, into interventions. But I thought for this segment, if we could get people to understand what APN is and where it has come from. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here, and thank you for this space, though. And I'll be very happy to bring the strategy in the next episode, because the strategy is for all of us. It's not for the Secretariat. So everyone should know about it and be part and parcel of its implementation.
Thank you. That was Stigmata Tenga, the Executive Director of the African Philanthropy Network. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the CAPSI podcast series, Conversations on African Philanthropy.